This is the Denali Highway, 135 miles of gravel cutting through the heart of Alaska, from Paxson in the east to Cantwell in the west. 85% of it is unpaved. It closes every winter. There are 4 places to stop in the entire 135 miles. Most people drive straight past it, on their way to Denali National Park, without ever knowing it exists. This is the story of one of the least driven roads in America. The area the Denali Highway passes through is called the Tangle Lakes region. It sits at the western edge of the Alaska Range. Tundra, glacial lakes, and mountain ridgelines stretching in every direction. People have been here for over 10,000 years. Archaeologists have identified more than 400 sites in the surrounding 225,000 acres, making this one of the oldest continuously occupied landscapes in North America. The Athapascan people traveled this corridor seasonally, following the Nelchina caribou herd on its annual migrations. Gold prospectors arrived in the early 1900s and cut rough supply trails through the terrain to reach mining settlements further west. Those trails eventually disappeared under the conditions. Denali, the mountain, sits at the far end of the Alaska Range. At 20,310 feet, it's the highest peak in North America, visible on clear days from enormous distances across the tundra. The federal government designated the area around it as a national park in 1917. For the next 40 years, the only way to reach it was the Alaska Railroad. There was no road. Nobody drove to Denali because driving to Denali wasn't possible. That was about to change. The push for a road started in the 1930s. Alaska residents wanted vehicle access to the park, and the Alaska Road Commission began surveying possible routes. Then World War II shut everything down. After the war, surveys resumed. The route was planned, but the terrain between Paxson and Cantwell was not cooperative. One section west of the Susitna River held up construction for 3 years. The ground was saturated glacial outwash, mud so unstable it swallowed heavy equipment. Bulldozers sank past their tracks. Workers would stabilize a section, come back the next morning, and find it had shifted overnight. Eventually, they got through. On August 5, 1957, the Denali Highway opened. 135 miles of road connecting the Richardson Highway to the park's highway corridor, the first vehicle access to Denali National Park in the park's 40-year history. Traffic came almost immediately. Lodges appeared along the route. Hunters, fishermen, and tourists started making the drive. For 14 years, if you wanted to reach Denali by road, this was the only way to do it. Then 1972 arrived, and everything changed. In 1972, the park's highway opened. It ran north from Anchorage directly to the park entrance. Paved, faster, and more direct than anything the Denali Highway could offer. The drive that used to require navigating 135 miles of gravel through the Alaska Range could now be done on a smooth, 2-lane highway from the state's largest city. Overnight, a road that had been the only way in became a detour nobody needed to take. Traffic dropped almost immediately. Lodges that had built their entire business around being the only stop on the only route suddenly weren't the only option anymore. Some adapted, most closed. The ones that survived did so by shifting their focus away from through traffic and toward hunters, fishermen, and the small number of people who specifically wanted to be somewhere remote. The state shifted maintenance priorities along with the traffic. The park's highway was the main corridor now. It got the funding, the regular grading, the attention. The Denali Highway got what was left in the budget after everything else was covered. Today, Denali National Park receives around 600,000 visitors a year. Almost all of them arrive on the park's highway. The road that first made the park accessible by car sits 27 miles to the east, and the vast majority of those 600,000 people never turn onto it. Which raises the question, what is the Denali Highway now, if it's no longer the road to anywhere? The Denali Highway opens roughly mid-May and closes sometime in October. The state closes it when it decides the season is done. There's no fixed date on a calendar. You call ahead, or you show up and find out. The first 21 miles from Paxson are paved. The last 3 into Cantwell are paved. The 111 miles in between are gravel. There are 4 places to stop across that stretch. 4 lodges, spread unevenly across 135 miles, each one a small operation that has survived by serving the specific kind of person who ends up out here. Hunters, fishermen, people passing through on ATVs, the occasional traveler who took a wrong turn and kept going. The last lodge is at milepost 82, which means the final 53 miles into Cantwell have nothing. No fuel, no food, no cell service, and on most days, very little traffic in either direction. On a typical summer day, the road sees a few dozen vehicles end to end. The road looks manageable on a map, a straight line through the Alaska Range, a few lodges, a couple of mountain passes. What the map doesn't show is what the road actually does to the vehicles that drive it. The gravel section is built on glacial terrain. In places, the road runs directly on top of glacial eskers, long, narrow ridges of gravel and sand left behind when the ice melted thousands of years ago. The road surface varies by year and by section. After maintenance, it can be relatively smooth. Left to itself, it develops washboard, the rhythmic corrugation that builds up on unpaved roads under regular traffic. Washboard vibrates everything in your vehicle. It loosens bolts. At the wrong speed, it gets worse the faster you go. Rocks are another problem. The gravel throws debris continuously. Windshields crack. Tires puncture. Most people who know this road bring at least 2 spare tires. Most people who don't know it bring none. At milepost 37, the road climbs to McLaren Summit, the second highest highway pass in Alaska at 4,086 feet. On a clear day from the top, you can see the full sweep of the Alaska Range, the McLaren Glacier, and the river valley below. The problem is that the weather at that elevation moves fast. A clear morning can become a cloud bank by early afternoon. Visibility drops, temperature drops, and there are no guardrails and no escape routes. When conditions come in at McLaren Summit, you have one option: slow down and wait it out. Further west, the road passes through Crazy Notch, a narrow slot carved by glacial action, with high moraines rising on either side. Snow accumulates in Crazy Notch long after the rest of the road is cleared in spring. It's one of the last sections to open in spring and one of the first to close in fall. In a bad year, it barely opens at all. The shoulder seasons, May and September, are when most incidents happen. People arrive expecting summer conditions. A single overnight freeze can glaze the gravel with ice. No warning, no signage. The surface looks the same from a windshield going 40 miles an hour until it isn't. In May, snow is still sitting in Crazy Notch, when the rest of the road has been open for weeks. At McLaren Summit, a weather system can move in within an hour and drop visibility to nothing. The temperature swings 20 degrees. People who left Paxson in the sunshine are pulling over at mile 37 because they can't see the road. September does the same thing in reverse. Summer conditions hold for a few weeks, then don't. A storm comes through overnight. By morning, there's a foot of snow at elevation, and the road hasn't been closed yet because the state hasn't made the call. If something goes wrong out here, help is not close. The Alaska State Troopers cover the entire state with fewer than 400 commissioned officers. In rural areas, inclement weather can extend response times to days for life safety emergencies. The lodge owners are usually the first to know something has happened. Someone calls in, or a vehicle comes through from the wrong direction, and the driver doesn't have an answer for where the other truck went. Alaska's hypothermia death rate runs about 10 times the national average. It's not dramatic when it happens. It's just cold, then tired, then a bad decision or two. The people who come here in July mostly know what they're doing. They've driven the road before. or they've done the reading. They have 2 spares, extra fuel, and a sense of the conditions. The shoulder seasons sort out the ones who didn't prepare from the ones who did. In fall, the road fills up, relatively speaking. The Nelchina caribou herd numbers around 36,000 animals. Every autumn they move south out of the Alaska Range, following the same routes they've used for thousands of years. The same routes the Athapascan people followed when they were the only ones out here. Hunters come from across Alaska and from out of state. They've been planning the trip since spring. The pullouts fill with trucks and ATVs, and for a few weeks in September, the road has more traffic than it sees the rest of the year combined. Some of them have been coming back to the same spot for 20, 30 years. They know which drainages the herd tends to use. Photographers come for the same reasons. September light on open tundra, Alaska Range behind it, 36,000 animals moving through. There aren't many places in the world where you can get that shot from a road birders. Birders come in summer. Before any of that, the highway is one of the only roads in Alaska that provides vehicle access to alpine tundra. That specific terrain draws species you can't find at lower elevations. Arctic warblers, gerfalcons, long-tailed jaegers. What these people have in common is that none of them ended up here by accident. They came because the road offers something specific that doesn't exist anywhere easier to reach. The Denali Highway is built on glacial terrain. Some of it sits on permafrost, ground that has been frozen for hundreds, in places thousands of years. That's starting to change. When permafrost thaws, it doesn't drain away. It turns to mud. Roads built on top of it sink, crack, and shift. Alaska's road crews are already fixing the same sections more frequently than they used to. By 2013, thawing permafrost was costing Alaska's Northern Road District $11 million a year in repairs. Projections put the total damage to Alaska's roads and infrastructure at somewhere between $37 and $51 billion by mid-century. The state is going to have to make decisions about which roads are worth that cost. A gravel road that sees a few dozen vehicles on a summer day, that serves no freight corridor, that connects 2 towns most Alaskans couldn't find on a map. That road is not going to be easy to justify. The Denali Highway survived 1972 because people still wanted to use it. Hunters, birders, the people who specifically want to be somewhere the park's highway crowd isn't. That was enough. Whether it's enough to survive what's coming under the ground is a different question.